Watch the light.
Welcome to the National Bicycle League's 1984 BMX Grand National Championship races at E.P. Tom Sawyer State Park in Louisville, Kentucky. The BMX racers here today range in age from under 5 to over 35. These are the nation's best riders who've been competing in BMX races throughout the year, all across the country to qualify for today's Grand National. We have A-class professional riders up first today. These young men are between 16 and 30, and they're racing for national points and a cash purse of $7,000. Eric Roof is one of the favorites and the current national champion. I talked with Eric earlier about being a professional BMX racer. This is Eric Roof, 1983 Grand Champion BMX racer. What's it like to become a professional in the BMX sport?
It's really exciting. You know, we have a lot of kids looking up to us. They really respect us, so we're out there really trying to set good examples. You know, being a professional is fun because we make a lot of money at it also.
How long have you been racing?
Close to 10 years now.
Oh, that's fantastic. What do you do to train? Or what do you recommend people do to train and get in shape?
The best thing I can recommend for getting in shape and training for racing is just riding your bike all the time. That's what I do. I do a few things on the side, such as weightlifting, but mostly I ride my bike every day.
How long have you been a professional?
For 6 years.
Oh, for 6 years. You must have started when you were
14.
Is it one of the highest paying sports in the world?
Far from it, but hopefully someday it will be. Right now, you know, we can make a good living at it, but it's not anywhere near the highest paid.
What does it take to become a professional and get sponsored and become a BMX racer?
The first thing you want to do when you're starting out in racing is try not to be too concerned with winning all the time. You know, being consistent is a pretty important thing, you know, taking seconds and thirds. Then when you move up to the national level, that's where the sponsors start looking at you, you know. You don't want to bug the sponsors and always have them, you know, watch me like this. They'll watch you if you're good, you know. They're going to take a look at you, and you're not going to have any trouble getting a sponsor if you're a good kid. Becoming a professional is just a step beyond that, you know. Takes a lot of practice, you know, a lot of hard training.
What do you think of this racetrack here in Kentucky for the BMX Grand National?
This is one of the best tracks we've raced this year. It's really smooth, fast. The jumps could be a little bigger, a little more challenging, but it's going to be a good racetrack. It's wide open, and that's what's most important, so you have room to make moves in the turns and such.
How fast do you get going on this track?
I would imagine top speed is probably around 30. Not too fast, but when you're tight, you know, when there's 8 guys abreast, it gets exciting.
Eric, we wish you a lot of success, and we hope you do well in the 1984 Grand National.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks a lot.
Before the first race gets underway, let's find out a little bit more about this Grand National track. I'm here with Bob Tedesco, president of NBL and one of the leading, if not the top expert in BMX track design. Bob, what can you tell us about this Grand National track here in Louisville, Kentucky?
This particular track, our main concerns were to build a safe but yet radical track for our Grand National. This particular track here is 1,150 feet long with a lot of tough obstacles.
Tell us about some of the jumps you've got engineered into this and the names of them and that type of thing.
All right, usually what happens when I go in, the tracks are already here, and what I will do is try to improve on basically what they have already built. This particular track here, in the first straightaway, I've raised the first jump about 2 feet. Going into the first turn, I added these 2 doubles, which will now make the rider stop pedaling, and they must now jump into the first turn, which makes it more competitive. As we move around the track, we come to the second obstacle, which is a tabletop. I increased the lip on the front end of it so that when a rider approaches it and hits it, it will throw him in the air, whether he wants to go up or not. As we go around the second turn, it's just a drop-off, and then I've built a jump that hasn't been put into a BMX track before. Usually what they'll do is just use one step up. On this particular jump, I've made it a three-tiered jump. So it's very challenging, and you'll see some of the riders now are landing on the flat area up on top. The professional riders will be able to hit the front and jump all three of the jumps. As we go around into the last turn, I've added another jump to the double that already was there. And then I hope this will be a unique jump also. The last jump, when I watched the riders riding on it, everyone tended to go to the inside of the jump. So what I've done is I've made the inside of the jump harder than the outside of the jump. I've cut the outside down so that it is now faster on the outside than the inside. So I hope that we're going to get a lot of passing. But the main thing I try to do is have a competitive track where there'll be passing in all the straightaways and turns. So I hope that's what we've accomplished here.
Now let's see the first race of the Grand National Finals. These are A-class professional riders.
I'm just going to read them the way they are on the sheet. They'll raise their hand so you know who they are. Eric Root.
I'll get to
Wilson Chanity. Tommy Bracken. Gary Ellis. Richard Vegas. Mike Miranda. Ron Anderson. And Clarence Perry.
All right, set them up. Riders ready? Watch the light.
Last time around, no, stays right in the gate, almost. Perry comes out with Bracken. It's going to be Bracken with the lead coming out of turn number one. They get a little bit back, and it looks like we're going to get Gary Ellis taking the early lead. Perry stuffed it underneath. It is now Miranda bailing out. Anderson hits him. It's all cleared Perry now. It is Perry, Ellis, Vegas, and Kennedy. The top four going into turn number four. Gary Ellis smokes on into turn number four. Pulls it out of the turn. It's going to be Gary Ellis. Clarence Perry coming after him. Kennedy and Vegas. It's going to be Ellis along with Perry, Vegas, Kennedy.
Gary, what was your strategy in winning that race?
Consistency.
What do you do to get that consistent?
Stay in the top four. Try to stay in the top four, all three motos.
Do you do anything special in terms of workouts or exercising?
I work out with weights and I ride my bike a lot and doing aerobics.
Terrific. How long have you been a pro?
Since November.
Oh, short career here. Are you going to stay with it?
Oh, yeah.
Ah, fantastic. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
B-class professional riders are on the line now. These young men will be going all out for a cash prize of $5,000.
Watch the light.
Well, details break out. Young trying to get there. It ain't going to happen just yet. Charlie Williams doing it from the outside. D. Leone, the Italian stallion on the red line, pours off the top side. Turn number one takes the lead to two. It is D. Leone, Charlie Williams, Daryl Young running 1, 2, 3. In the fourth spot right now is Enid. They take it single file now down into that triple jump into the final turn. Red line, D.D. Leone hanging tough. Charlie Williams coming strong. It is going to be Leone, Williams, Young, and Enid. Hey, Leone, Williams, Young, and Enid. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Fantastic, guys.
Cruiser classes are up next. These riders will be running in age categories from 13 to over 35. BMX racing is a fast-paced, exciting sport where anything can happen. I asked some of the riders which they thought was most important in BMX racing, mental attitude or physical ability.
It's about 60% mental and 50% or 40% physical.
I'd say mental because you have to have the positive attitude coming into the race. You have to just know that you're going to win, and you can't have any doubts about it.
Bringing it home for Patterson in 14 cruisers will be Bentley, Stetson, Burhagen.
Behind together on it, and you're just as good as them and just as fast. You can't let them psych you out thinking they're going to beat you every race, or you're not going to do any good. You got to be on the ball, or you don't need to be racing in there.
I think really it's mental more than physical, because Eric Roop's a good example. He's not big, no, he's not strong, but he's got the right mental attitude, and he's #1 pro this year.
I also asked them how they train for the mental part of racing.
Well, you really have to just concentrate, really hard on what you're going to do. I mean, you can't just say, all right, I'm just going to go ride down the track. You got to really concentrate on how you're going to take a jump or take a turn or just the whole race.
Just keep thinking about it and go over the race in my mind a bunch of times and just think about it. I try to run a race from every position so I can get a good start and everything, you know.
I sort of train myself like I'd be in a closed room by myself and just turn everything off and just concentrate. That's all it is, mainly concentration.
There are few sports that have such a wide appeal for participants as BMX racing. Earlier, I talked with Bill Green, a team sponsor and active racer, about why BMX is so popular with kids and adults. What attracts people to BMX racing?
Well, first of all, it's not a team sport. I think, being an individual sport, everybody gets a chance to, quote-unquote, play the game. You can go out there and you can compete without having to be the best on the team or perhaps sitting on the bench. So to that extent, BMX opens its doors to everybody and anybody, no matter what age you are and no matter what sex you are. And the bicycling thing has become of age. Bicycling across the world is the second largest sport next to soccer, and it hasn't been in this country. But you're seeing some progress in cycling in this country, not only on the adult level of the road racing that we saw in the Olympics, but this generation of kids on these BMX bikes, it's now become a hobby to them, a sport, just not a means of transportation. So there's a good future for cycling.
You race in a different class than the kids.
Right. We race, everything is broken down by ages, and I happen to race in a group called a 35 and up cruiser.
But there are a lot of older people.
Oh, for sure.
You race.
For sure. Well, that's another thing, you see, as we bring in the, the younger kids, the dads are generally somewhere within their mid-30s and wanting to do it all over again. He's out there coaching his kid, and he's trying to perhaps say, well, maybe I can do it too. So, yeah, you'll see quite a bit of fathers out there now.
BMX dads aren't just riding and coaching sons either. A lot of them have daughters out there racing. The girls race in age categories from 7 to over 16, and they're tough competitors.
Fortune. I'm bound to see my dream.
Little Six experts are up next. Though only 6 years old, these little guys are experienced racers. I asked Michael Regina's father if he thought BMX racing was dangerous for kids.
Well, not really. It looks more dangerous than it really is, but with all the safety equipment they use, the helmets and the protective paddings, it's really a very, very safe sport in my opinion. We've seen a lot of hard falls, but then you see the kids just get up and walk away usually. You know, it's a pretty safe sport.
I also asked team manager Dan Van Vickel if BMX racing takes any special abilities on the part of someone wanting to participate.
No, not to participate. You know, I think that's the one single thing that impresses me the most about the sport is that unlike many sporting competitions available to young kids, this one there are no bench sitters. Anybody can participate, from the worst of athletes to the best of athletes. It's open to anybody. You know, there's no ground rules as far as a person's own athletic ability. Of course, when they develop their athletic ability, then that's going to say how far they get in the sport. But anybody can participate.
But it isn't just a question of how big you are, how strong you are. There are other things involved.
Oh yeah, it's a good smart rider will know when to make a good move on a track. You know, going around a turn, he'll see that it's an opportunity to cut inside and leave the other guys high on the bank and make up a couple of things. So it's not pure athletic muscle that does the deal out on the track. It's a lot of wit, it's quickness, finesse. You know, it's everything.
Professional riders are up again, and they're about to start the Pro Open, which has a cash award of $2,000.
Starter checks them out. They all got good credentials. The gate slams down, and it looks like Brackens launch care of it, and Brackens goes down. Wall takes the whole damage. Zegers, Fade, and Anderson, followed by Miller. Fade has the lead right now. Here comes Anderson. Zegers trying to move up. Let's see if the GT colors on Robert Fade hold up. He's headed down into the triple rollers. And the big old final turn, it looks like it's going to be Fade. Zegers, followed by Anderson, Miller, Lonkarovich. It's Lonkarovich trying to move up. Take the fourth. Lonkarovich, Miller.
How'd you go about winning that? What was your strategy?
Well, I got out of the gate a little slow, but I knew in that first turn a lot of guys were going to be going for it. And that's where I've been making all my moves, all yesterday and all today in the qualifiers and the semis and stuff. So I just slowed down, let those guys go for it. Inside was open, and I took it.
Fantastic. Is that what you advise the amateur riders to do, to make their moves early?
Well, it's not necessarily that. It's just really important when you're practicing the track that you practice inside lanes, outside lanes, all the different lines that you can take in the first turn and all the turns. So it's just a matter of, a lot of practice, dedication.
Congratulations. Fantastic race.
Appreciate it.
Now back to the races. The racers competing here today in the NBL Grand National have devoted many hours to the BMX sport, practicing and traveling to races all across the country. These young riders couldn't be here without support from their parents. Craig Fells summed up the way most parents feel about BMX racing when I asked him what he and his boys got out of it.
I read a national survey one time, this is about 3-4 years ago, that said that the average parent in the United States will spend less than 20 minutes a week talking to his child. Now that bothered me greatly, and I said, well, I do not want to do that. So when this sport came up, it was just a natural, the timing was right. We jumped in the sport with both feet. And my sons and I spend, I would estimate, at least 24 hours a week, either talking, racing. There's a very tightness among the parents and the rider, other kids that participate in the sport. There's more to this sport than just winning. For a kid to get out there and participate and take his chances, it's one bike and one kid against the world. It's a special kid.
We're talking 15 outside. We're talking Peter Casaro and Doug Davis. I can't believe it. Going down, Casaro and Davis. We got a number 79 and a number 48. 79 is Hendler. The man made it through the California Crunch. Give him a hand. Mikey King in second. In third, Bert Barabias getting there. In fourth, Darwin Griffin. It's Hendler, King, Barabias, Griffin, Griggs, Davis, Butler. It's going to be Hendler, King at the line. Look like
Fantastic, Ray. What happened out there? You really came ahead.
Oh, it was really hard because everyone crashed in the first straightaway. I don't know, next thing I know, I was out in front and gave it all I got.
That's terrific. What do you do in training to get up?
Not very much. I just ride my bike as much as I can.
That's marvelous.
1 second faster than the pros. 15x.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot.
You'll be racing next year?
Oh, yeah, you better believe it.
Okay.
Here we go, 17X. Amon has the whole shot. Kokoris is with him. And here comes Anderson. Anderson, your leader right now, followed by Amon and Kokoris. There are your top three. Anderson, Amon, Kokoris, followed by National 6. Rick Palmer for Patterson, top four riders. Tough break back there for Kevin Hall. Look at the heat coming on you. Final straightaway coming down. Parker, Mongoose, and Fresh Hour. It's going to be Patterson, Amon, Kokoris, Palmer. Top four riders in the house.
That was a fantastic race.
Thank you.
A very tough one.
Very tough. Got a bad start, and I didn't know if I could be able to go on the inside in the first turn. And it worked. They went up high, and I went underneath them and got my move.
That was terrific.
Thanks a lot.
It's easy to see how people get hooked on BMX racing. It's a sport with many levels of participation that involves the whole family. I asked some team managers how someone would get started in BMX.
Okay, if you wanted to get involved, you could go to your local bike shop. You can buy a cheaper version of a BMX bike and work your way up. What we run are really high dollar bicycles. They're custom. You start with a frame and you add the wheels, you add your handlebars to fit you. You know, that's what we use. Now you can start with a bike that's $200 and go out and compete with a guy that's running an expensive bike. It just depends on the kid and the equipment.
Can someone get started in BMX racing inexpensively?
It's relatively inexpensive, really. The racing that you're seeing here today, and when you go on the national circuit, is they're the best riders in the country. On a local basis, the entry fees for a race run around $4 to $6 a rider. You can buy a BMX bike at an entry level of around $70 to $80. So, yeah, a kid can get into it very, very reasonably.
We're almost ready for the final race of the 1984 NBL Grand National, the Pro Cruisers, who are competing for $4,000. Earlier, I talked with one of the pros, Toby Henderson, and his wife, Ellen. Ellen, what's it like to be married to a BMX professional racer?
It's fun. It's challenging. It's not like, being married to someone who goes to work 8 to 5. He's gone on weekends. And it's exciting. It's exciting to get the phone call and hear how he's doing. I'm real proud of him. There's a lot of admiration.
Riders ready. Watch the light.
Trying not to let the wind push him back. They come storming out, and it looks like Patterson getting the nose out. Henderson got a good line out, though, steals the lead on the outside of turn number 1. It's going to be Toby Henderson, Patterson, and Perry going into turn number 2. Yes, Henderson almost gets his foot caught in the rut, but brings it back out and hangs on to his lead. It's going to be Toby Henderson, Brent Patterson, Clarence Perry, and it looks like Rod Beckering back there now sliding by. Earthquake, Clarence Perry, and he takes over third. Coming home, it's going to be Toby Henderson, Patterson, and Beckering side by side.
Boy, that was one whale of a race out there.
So it took everything I had. Oh, man. Oh, jeez. Woo.
So there you have it, the 1984 NBL Grand Nationals. Get out to your local track and participate in as many races as you can, and maybe we'll see you at the 1985 NBL Grand Nationals.